All right, so what I want to spend the next few minutes talking about is the argument process. And so this is what we're going to kind of be working on for the next few weeks here. And basically, this is obviously this argument process is going to lead to an argument paper eventually. But the thing that I want to stress here is that an argument piece is not about your opinion. Lots of arguments end with a start and end with people's opinions. This is not the purpose here. The purpose that we're looking at here is more argument for at what is called academic discourse. And so academic discourse has a little bit different intent. Academic discourse, its main purpose is the search for knowledge. It's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. Ultimately, yes, egos can get involved, but it's the search for knowledge is the primary purpose. And so what we want to do is we want to take a particular stance or a particular perspective, a position, we'll call it. So we're going to take our position in a paper, and then we have to prove the position. This is known as defending it. And then we share it. And this is the writing aspect to it. So let's take a look kind of at how two people. So let's say we've got this guy over here, and he's got a really good idea. He's got this idea that's really grown into something, and he feels like he needs to share this idea. And maybe this idea is about let's say it's about a new medicine. And so he's got this idea about this medicine. He's a smart guy. He wears glasses. He does his research. He spends his time in the laboratory. And so he does his research. He comes up with a basic idea. He hasn't actually made any new medicine yet, but he writes down all of his ideas and his research on a piece of paper. And he takes that and he sends that out into the academic world. And over here, there's a woman who also really likes reading and studying about medicine. And she reads that paper and she looks at it and she thinks about it and she says, I think that you got most of your information's right, but I wonder about a few other things. So she then responds and publishes her own paper on the topic and sends it back. And so this process, this act of paper writing and sharing information is exactly how knowledge is created. And so this process is what leads to really cool things like helicopters and PlayStations and new medicines for when you get sick. And so over the course of the next few weeks, when we talk about argument, I want you to be thinking about topics and ideas that can be, one, provable. That's not how to spell provable. They can be provable, they can be analyzed, and they can be defended with third-party research. And so that's going to be what we're focusing on. Now, what I want you to begin thinking about are 5 topics. You're going to have 5 different topics that you're going to be researching over the next couple of weeks. And each of these topics needs to be, A, something you're interested in. So it needs to have interest for you. It needs to be searchable. Now, this is not searchable on the internet, but on the FECC databases, which I'm going to talk about and teach you how to use. So it needs to have an interest, it needs to be searchable, and then C, I think the last thing that's important is it needs to be a narrow enough topic that is reasonable. And this is going to be a big question. So, for example, a lot of people like to hit some of the big textbook topics, gun control or abortion or the legalization of marijuana, some of these topics. These topics get a lot of attention, probably a lot more attention than they need. There's a lot of much smaller topics that are very interesting, maybe local topics. They might be topics having to do with more academic or scientific inquiries. So I want you to think about how can I narrow this topic. Now, if you're really stuck on wanting to do something like gun control, you're going to need to narrow this down. Gun control, entire books could be written on the topic. And so you're going to need to narrow it down into something that's a lot more manageable. Maybe like background checks for people with a history of mental illness. So something like that. This is far more manageable. You could look at particular states, specific studies based specifically on that topic. And it's going to be a lot more fruitful than just the big grand idea of gun control. And so really try what this comes back to is that you have to be able to narrow your topic. Very important. So think about how you're going to do that. All right.